ride, and then we riding, baby. Street say that we so crazy. I don't care, don't you ever try play me. I ain't tight, no test lights. I bring it on my worst nights.
Welcome back to another edition of Clickbait Media. I am your host, Rob Caesar, baby. If this your first time here, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. So whenever I post, you will know that I am here. Alright, so in this video, we're going to break down how black people have become the face of coronavirus and also how it's so-called transmitted through the air. So let's get started. Alright, so right now we're going to break down what is an airborne disease. An airborne disease is a disease that is caused by pathogens that can be transmitted through the air. Which pretty much that we know all this. But the most important part is the highlighted area, which states airborne transmission is distinct from transmission by respiratory droplets, which are large enough, usually greater than 5 micrometers, to fall to the ground rapidly after being produced. Alright, so now that we know that respiratory droplets are different and that they fall to the ground immediately after they are produced, what are they? They are created naturally from breathing, talking, sneezing, coughing, or vomiting. And they can be artificially genetic by aerosol or whatever. But what's important to note is respiratory droplets are different than droplet nuclei, which are smaller than 5 micrometers and can remain suspended in the air for a significant period of time. Thus, droplet nuclei, but not respiratory droplets, can be a vector for airborne disease. So pretty much it's safe to say that your breath, talking, sneezing, coughing, even vomiting, it falls straight to the ground as soon as it comes out of your mouth. So the next thing to establish is how long does it stay on a surface?
Colds and flus are usually transmitted person to person via tiny droplets in the air, like when a contagious person coughs, sneezes, or even talks too close to you.
That's because these viruses and their viral envelopes remain viable in moist, warm environments, and they infect us when they land in similar places, like our throats and nasal passageways.
But what happens when these pathogens land on our skin or countertop? How long do they survive?
Well, keep in mind that viruses aren't alive, so the term survive is technically not correct. They're either infectious or identifiable.
Cold-causing rhinoviruses and most influenza viruses can be found on surfaces for more than 7 days, meaning their genetic material remains intact and detectable. But their ability to infect deteriorates swiftly, dissipating after 24 hours.
Flu viruses generally cease to be infectious after 9 hours on non-porous surfaces like metals and plastics, and 4 hours on porous surfaces like Kleenex.
Scientists aren't entirely sure why. Most theories suggest that porous surfaces suck away moisture faster, and this drying out reduces virus stability.
But temperature changes, sunlight, and salt can play a role. Even materials themselves can make a difference.
One study found that flu viruses can remain infectious on stainless steel for up to 7 days, though their numbers drop off during that time.
On copper surfaces, however, flu viruses basically cease to be infectious after 6 hours.
When it comes to hands and skin, cold-causing rhinoviruses are only infectious between a few minutes to about an hour, and influenza viruses cease to be infectious after about 15 minutes.
But considering how often we scratch our faces, rub our eyes, or high-five a friend, that's still plenty of time to pass on the bugs.
So literally, the only way if someone breathes, talks, coughs, sneezes in your face, or on a surface and you come immediately right behind them and touching it, that is literally the only way, because the only way to pass it on is through the fluids getting in your body. Land on your skin ain't gonna even last that long. So that's pretty much to say, no, it's not airborne at all. And it's hard to contract. Now suddenly, overnight, black people have become the face of COVID-19. After all these other countries, all of a sudden, now it's a lot of African Americans are going to suffer the most. Which I find it hard to believe, because it skipped over Africa. They have the least amount. South America, all the black population, the least amount. But all of a sudden, African Americans are more in danger? Yeah, let's see what they got to say about that, though.
Some states are reporting disproportionately large numbers of African American deaths. So Steve Osinsami, he leads us off with more on this disturbing trend that even the White House is now weighing in on.
From the moment the coronavirus outbreak began, health officials have preached that COVID-19 doesn't discriminate, that it's an equal opportunity killer. But new reports strongly suggest that race still matters. Look at Louisiana. Of the more than 500 people whose final breaths were stolen by this disease, the state says that more than 2/3 of them were black.
Disturbingly, this information is going to show you that slightly more than 70% of all the deaths in Louisiana are of African Americans. And so that deserves more attention, and we're going to have to dig into that and see what we can do to slow that trend down.
In Chicago, the numbers fall the same. Most of the people who've gotten sick or died are people of color. Nearly 70% of all COVID-19 deaths in the city are African American. The city says that's nearly 6 times more fatal than what's being seen by their white neighbors.
Now here is Africa.
Yeah, maybe I'd like to add to what Mike said. As of today, the number of cases reported from sub-Saharan Africa is 233 cases and 4 deaths. And it's actually, in terms of confirmed cases, it's the lowest region. But as Mike said, we cannot take this number as amount of, or the number of cases we have in Africa. Probably we have undetected cases or unreported cases. But in addition to that, even if we take these 233 cases are true, we have to prepare for the worst. In other countries, we have seen how the virus actually accelerates after a certain tipping point. So the best advice for Africa is to prepare for the worst and prepare today. It's actually better, if these numbers are really true, to cut it from the bud. And that's why we're saying we have to do the testing, we have to do the contact tracing, we have to do the isolation, and cut it from the bud. And with regard to mass gathering and so on, it will help if we avoid that. And WHO's recommendation is actually mass gatherings should be avoided, and we should do all we can to cut it from the bud, expecting that the worst could happen, because we have seen how the virus really speeds up and accelerates in other continents or countries. So that's our advice, and I think Africa should wake up. My continent should wake up. Thank you.
So now when you look at this map and see where the spread is at, where it's heavily at and where it's not, you can clearly see that they're lying. How the fuck is it going to skip where the majority of the blacks are in Africa and in South America, which has a lot of blacks, but all the African Americans, so-called African Americans, are going to die from it? How are we going to die when the rest of the black folks ain't even died yet. And let me remind you, we were the first people all over the world. We ain't dropping like flies. Y'all trying to use that as a scare tactic. I haven't seen y'all scratch the issues about Latinos, other people. First it was just old folks and people with underlying health conditions. So now that y'all trying to say that we predominantly have underlying health conditions, so we're at risk. Man, please. I don't believe you. Not to say that there's not people that are actually dying from this, because yes, they man-made this here. But y'all trying to strike fear into us, and we not going for it. We see what y'all doing. And it's a lot of corruptness behind this here. Like Bill Gates and WHO and the Dr. Fauci that's always on TV with Trump. Yeah, that motherfucker dirty too. Yeah. So, I'm going to put that in a later video about how we need to stop them. But that's going to do it for me in this video right here. I'm your host, Rob Caesar, baby. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and share this with many family and friends as possible. Because there's a lot of underlying things going on with this corruptness and this diseases and this virus and a whole lot of land that needs to be exposed. And that'll do it for me. I'm your host, Rob Caesar, baby. Clickbait Media. And I'm up out of here. Peace.
It's ride and then we're riding, baby. Squeak, say that we so crazy. I don't care, don't you ever try play me. I ain't tight, no test lights. I bring it on my worst nights.